Ever wonder what things people could do back in the 1960s that are totally banned today? Let's take a trip back in time and explore. The 1960s were a time of major changes and cultural shifts that still fascinate us today. Looking back, we see practices that were common then, but have since then been vanished and banned from our society. Let's explore 8 activities from the 1960s that have disappeared from our lives, giving us a nostalgic but revealing look at the past. Smoking was seen as sophisticated and glamorous, often shown in TV shows and movies. Ashtrays were as common as coffee cups in meeting rooms, and doctors even appeared in ads endorsing cigarette brands. Everything changed with the 1964 Surgeon General's report, which linked smoking to lung cancer and other serious health issues. This started to shift public perception and policy. Today, smoking in public places is largely banned to protect non-smokers from secondhand smoke and to discourage smoking overall. The smoky haze that once filled public spaces is now replaced by cleaner air. In the 1960s, bicycles were symbols of freedom and leisure, as well as transportation. People rode through neighborhoods with the wind in their hair, and helmets were rare. They were considered necessary only for race car drivers or astronauts, not everyday cyclists. Public awareness of head injury risks from bicycle accidents was pretty low, and society trusted individuals to manage these risks without protective gear. This began to change in the late 70s and early 80s as studies highlighted the dangers of cycling without a helmet. Safety campaigns targeted both parents and children, promoting helmet use to prevent serious injuries. While the feeling of wind in one's hair might have diminished, the increased safety provided by helmets is a trade-off most modern cyclists accept. In the 1960s, it was common for American households to own exotic pets like turtles, monkeys, or even big cats. The exotic pet trade thrived with minimal regulation, and little attention was given to the animal's welfare or the ecological impact. Wild animals were often seen as unique, fascinating additions to families with little regard to their natural habitat or conservation status. One striking example of this era's lax attitude towards exotic pets is the private ownership of big cats such as lions or tigers. It may seem surreal now, but back then, it wasn't unusual to find these majestic creatures in suburban backyards, or even as part of a family photo. The allure of owning something so powerful and exotic often overshadowed safety or ethical concerns. A notable instance is the story of Neil the lion. In the 1960s, actress Tippi Hedren, her husband Noel Marshall, and their daughter Melanie Griffith shared their home with Neil, a fully grown lion. Photos from this period show Neil lounging around in their living room, playing in their yard, or even sleeping in their beds. This unconventional family arrangement persisted for several years without significant legal challenges or a public outcry. Today, the scenario is vastly different. Increased awareness of wildlife conservation and the risks associated with exotic pets has led to strict regulations. Laws like the Endangered Species Act and international agreements have significantly curtailed the trade in exotic animals. Owning a monkey or a tiger as a pet is now seen not as a mark of eccentricity, but as a legal liability and a conservational concern. Seatbelts. In the 1960s, seatbelts in cars were more of an optional accessory than a mandatory safety feature. This reflected the era's casual approach to life, but it also led to higher rates of fatalities and injuries in road accidents. As evidence mounted that seatbelts significantly reduced the risk of death and serious injury, laws requiring their use began to be implemented in the 1980s. Today, wearing a seatbelt is second nature to most people, but it's interesting to recall a time when it was merely an option. Playground safety. Playgrounds in the 1960s were almost like mini adventure parks, free from the watchful eye of overprotective adults. Metal slides, towering and steep, were a particular favorite. On hot days, these slides became scorchingly hot, and yet children eagerly lined up for their turn. It was a rite of passage, a test of courage and endurance. The swings offered a wild, soaring ride, often leading to contests among children to see who could swing the highest. The merry-go-round, a dizzying device, challenged the bravest souls, spinning faster as more children pushed, leading to exhilarating but risky rides. Child safety in play areas was a nascent concept, with little consideration given to the potential dangers of hard surfaces, sharp edges, and high falls. Modern playgrounds are a stark contrast, designed with safety as a paramount concern. Rubberized surfaces, lower heights, and rounded, softer structures are now the norm. While some may argue that today's playgrounds lack the same level of adventure, the reduction in playground-related injuries speaks for itself. Corporal punishment. In the 1960s, physical punishment was a widely accepted method of discipline in both homes and schools. The saying, "spare the rod, spare the child," was taken quite literally, with corporal punishment seen as an effective way to instill discipline and respect in children. At home, spanking was a common response to various misbehaviors and was considered a standard parenting tool, believed to build character and instill values. This philosophy extended to schools, where teachers often had the implicit, if not explicit, permission to use corporal punishment. Paddles hung in classrooms, serving as both tools of discipline and symbols of authority. Today, there has been a significant shift in how society views this practice. Many countries have outlawed corporal punishment in schools, and an increasing number are banning it in homes as well. This change reflects a broader understanding of child development and the negative long-term impacts of physical punishment. Now, alternative disciplinary methods that focus on positive reinforcement and communication are more widely advocated and practiced. Drinking and driving. In the 1960s, the danger of drinking and driving were not as widely recognized or legislated as they were today. It wasn't uncommon for people to drive home after a night of heavy drinking with little fear of legal repercussions. Society at the time had a casual indifference to the risks involved, and there were few laws or enforceable measures to deter this behavior. Today, drinking and driving is not only socially unacceptable, but also heavily penalized by law. Strict regulations and widespread public awareness campaigns have made it clear that operating a vehicle under the influence is dangerous and intolerable. These changes reflect a significant shift in societal attitudes and legal frameworks aimed at enhancing public safety. Environmental regulations. In the 1960s, there were very few environmental regulations. Factories could release smoke and chemicals into the air and water without much concern for pollution. Environmental protection was not a priority, and the effects of industrial pollution were not well understood. Recycling was rare, and people didn't commonly collect or reuse materials like paper, glass, and plastic. The mindset was largely to use these things once and then throw them away. Today, things are very different. We have strict environmental laws and a greater awareness of sustainability. There is a strong push for green technology and renewable energy sources. Modern regulation aims to protect the air and the water quality and reduce waste and promote recycling. As we look back at these once common practices, it's fascinating to see how societal norms and regulations have evolved. The 1960s, with its mix of freedom and rebellion, set the stage for many of the safety and health standards we take for granted today. Changes in the laws regarding drinking and driving and environmental protections and more highlight society's growing commitment to public safety and environmental sustainability. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.